Hello, everybody, and welcome to Bright Founders Talk at Temi. Temi is an international software development company that designs, builds, and delivers software for sustainable businesses and promising startups. Welcome to our podcast, where we bring you the most inspiring stories of entrepreneurs and experts in the software development industry. And each week, we interview successful leaders who share their unique journeys and valuable insights. I'm your host, Barry, and today we're lucky enough to have a remarkable guest joining us, Roy Baharav, who is CEO and co-founder at Hi Auto. Hello, Roy. Welcome to the podcast.
Hello. Very happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me. Looking forward to the conversation.
Yeah, the pleasure is all ours. We know you're really busy, so we want to thank you, first of all, for taking time out of your day to speak with us. So just for anyone who doesn't know who you are or recognize your company name, could you just tell us a little bit about yourself and the company?
Yes, so I am a second-time entrepreneur. Also spent between my two startups a few years at Google as a product manager. Learned a lot there. Appreciated the time. And today Google is a competitor of Hi Auto. So I get to enjoy Google twice. Hi Auto is a company we founded at the beginning of 2019 around voice AI for the automotive space. And at the end of 2020, we pivoted the company to the quick service restaurants space where we are focusing on drive-thrus. If you have used drive-thrus, which are very popular in the US, there are over 100,000 drive-thrus in the US and probably 200,000 drive-thrus worldwide. You drive through the car lanes and you get a speaker and a microphone that you talk to. You speak typically with the person at the restaurant. You order your food, and then you drive forward. You get to the window, you get your food, and you pay. What Hi Auto is doing is we are replacing that task of the restaurant, and we are automating it. So we are taking the order using voice AI and saving some labor and bringing some other efficiencies that help increase revenue for the restaurants.
So why start with drive-thrus and quick service restaurants as your primary market?
It's a very good question. As I said, we pivoted into this space. Maybe it would be interesting to know that the time that we pivoted into this space was toward the end of 2020, when the drive-through restaurants became super popular for guests because the dine-ins were closing. And also in the US and also in other countries, governments paid stimulus checks to people so that the economy can keep going. So people had money, they spent it, they couldn't go to restaurants, so they went to the drive-thrus. So revenue at the drive-thru went up. But because of these same stimulus checks, people had less incentive to actually go to work because they got paid anyway. And suddenly, if you are a restaurant owner, a franchisee of a certain chain, your business just grew 20 or 30%, and it's amazing. But you don't know if you can open tomorrow because you don't have employees. So this was a very interesting point where it was very clear for restaurants that they need to automate as much as possible their operations. And we understood this labor crisis that is happening at the restaurant space. And we understood that we are well positioned because of our domain knowledge in voice and because of the way that the problem was structured to be a leading player in this space. And we pivoted and never looked back.
So how does your voice AI differentiate itself from maybe traditional speech to text systems or Siri or Alexa or something like that?
So I think it's important to understand how the drive-through conversation is unique. When you look at drive-through conversations, on one end, it's very simple. You're not talking about the stock market or the latest NBA games. You are talking about ordering from that specific branch. But the problem is that people are very indecisive, and they start talking, and then they say, "Oh, you know what? Forget about it." And I want to add to the first one pickles, and so it's a very complicated conversation, very short, and a lot of items are being mentioned. So if I'm saying I'd like combo number one with no pickles, extra mayo, no tomatoes, and lettuce, it's one sentence, but you have to get, six different things right in that sentence. And if you missed one and now the guest is getting mayo instead of no mayo, you're going to, throw your burger because you're not going to eat it because you didn't want mayo. So it's really critical. This accuracy is critical. So it turns out that when you look at the most advanced LLM models, you are not able to get to a 95% accuracy on the full order. So the full order is, I gave an example of one utterance, but actually there are 6 utterances in an average order. So you need to get 6 of them right, each of them with 6 items in order to get the full order correct, right? And that's actually very, very tough. So even if let's say that your accuracy on each item is 99%, it's not good enough, right? Because you're going to make a mistake on 30 different things. So it's a very challenging problem, and employees are super accurate in how they do it. Hi Auto understood it. It was part of our strategy. We understood that we have to be more accurate than the average employee. Always there are amazing employees that are going to be better than us. And what we did, and this was before the LLM days, we built our own AI model, but we knew that it's going to take a long time until this model can run by itself and get to this fantastic accuracy levels needed. So what we did is we combined AI with what we call human in the loop fallback. And the idea is that when the accuracy level of the system, or when the confidence of the system is below a certain level, we're able to bring a digital input to understand the intent of the customer, and we are bringing that input in real time. And by doing so, we are able to keep the overall accuracy of the system at a super high level. Over time, we are reducing the amount of human interventions, but in terms of product, we brought a product that is at a service level that is in par with employees from the early days.
Do you have any issues with like particular accents or dialects or languages? Because I always find it very curious when I see these language learning models and the amount of variety of accents that we have in English. Is there like a specific formula that you have for like standard American English, or do you just have to have every interpretation of every possible dialect and accent?
The models today are pretty good in terms of generalizing across accents and different dialects, and so that's less of an issue today. There are other issues in terms of like the quality of the audio at different restaurants, but these are two different problems. One is, how do you get the quality of the speech recognition, so getting the audio to become words and in an accurate way. That's one problem which we are developing in-house, and we can customize to a specific brand because we control the model. And the other one is, and that's really the more challenging part, is how do you understand exactly what was the intent of the customer? And that's where the LLMs are coming to play.
Is that where you have to handle like issues like with multiple voices or overlapping speech or loud background noises, things like that?
This is separate. So in terms of noise and those kind of things are handled by the first model, which is like the automatic speech recognition. Other speakers, or understanding when someone is talking to the system versus they're talking to someone else in the car, that's a different model that is running in the background and is able to essentially tell the system when to ignore and when to consider what is being said.
What has been your actual experience? When you came into this, I imagine you had these will be the problems, these will be the things that we need to deal with. Were there any unexpected issues that you hadn't thought about when you first started?
We learned throughout the way, from the get-go, we, for example, understood that it's really important that we are able to speak with the employees at the restaurants because there is certain information that we need to get from the employees. So we allowed employees through a box that we are placing at the restaurant. We allowed employees to essentially click their existing headset system, and just like they speak to themselves, they have like an internal channel. They can click the B channel, which is their internal channel, and say, "Hi Otto, we are out of X," or "Hi Otto, we're shutting down for the day," or "Hi." So they can actually, because their hands are typically tied, and it's not easy for them to text or to use a screen. So for them to use their voice to provide information is really the easiest way. So that's something we discovered. And we also understood a lot of things about the data, and a lot of the things we understood today, a lot of companies are copying. We have created the standard of what is being measured. How do you optimize? I'll give you an example. So one of the important metrics of this industry is how many of the orders are you completing, okay, are being completed. Initially, we said if the employees decide to jump in mid-order, okay, or at the beginning of the order, we couldn't have completed the order, so we take this out of the stat. This is not part of the completion rate. Our success rate is you look at how many orders we completed, and in how many cases we asked the restaurant to intervene or a customer asked to intervene. This was how we looked at it initially. But then what we understood is that there is a reason why employees intervene. And we knew it at the beginning, but we said some of it is because they are not trained. So that's not us. Some of it is because they don't trust us. It's like we're not fast enough. We're not. But at some point, we understood that we have to take overall responsibility across everything. And we have to make them successful. And we started we just changed what we show the customers. Instead of showing them our success rate, we started showing them the full completion rate. And we started working with them on, working with the employees, solving all the different problems. Some of it is internet, some of it is menu configuration, some of it, a lot of different things. And we increased the completion rate from 80%, for example, with one chain to over 90%. And that can be the difference between being able to remove to save employee hours versus not being able to save hours.
Did you find the frontline workers a little bit disruptive or unsupportive when they first adopted it?
I must say that it was very, very natural for the staff at the restaurant to use the system. First of all, we made it very simple for them. We also have some good training and very good customer success that Hi Auto is providing. And some of the good deployments that we had involved the ability to sell it also to the employees. For example, some of our brands are giving it their own name. So, for example, one of our most successful customers is Bojangles, and they call it Bolinda. And the staff at the restaurant looks at Bolinda as one of their crew members. For example, Bolinda appears on the labor plan. She's in position number 1, Bolinda. And now there is in some cases, there is this a sliver that is wrapping the speaker post, and that provides the name and says, I am I'm your virtual assistant, Bolin, or this is in other places, what is that name? So trying to give it some life.
Sounds really interesting. So, if you look at it from the customer's perspective, your client's perspective, how has adopting High Auto improved the operation in terms of like speed, customer satisfaction, accuracy, for example?
So I think in terms of, so the way that we look at ROI is it's divided to three areas. One is labor efficiency, two is guest experience, and three is average check. Okay, these are the three areas. You're talking now about guest experience and also potentially operational efficiency. So what High Auto is providing is something that is super important for restaurants, and that's consistency, especially with lower volume restaurants. When you just have like, 3 employees at certain times or 2 employees, if an employee doesn't come to work, you cannot open. And so High Auto is providing you consistency. You can rely on it. If suddenly you expected that during a certain hour you would have 15 guests, but suddenly 50 guests came because, across the street there was a special event for the church and people came by and you didn't expect it. So High Auto is able to handle these changes in volumes while, and the employees are, it's a huge effort for the employees. So that removes one dimension of pressure from the work at the restaurant. In terms of speed, we are typically a little bit faster or same speed, but we are able to include more content. So specifically more upsells or recommendations. So we can recommend more things, but still keep the order time at the same level. If you remove these upsells, then you can get the average speed to be better than what it is with employees. Again, across the system, you may have some employees that are, just amazing. You come in, they recognize your voice. Barry, how are you? Good to have you back. Would you like your usual? It's like this is so you have, but there aren't many employees like that. And High Auto is providing you a great service across. Then on top of it, so you get better speed, you get consistency across all your stores. You can use a branded voice so you can also differentiate yourself. And then you can start building on top of it. You can customize the pitch, the script to the, if it's a holiday or the weekend or night or day. You can do more upsells when it's off hours and less upsells when it's rush hours. You can do many different things in a way that it works all the time. That's in terms of the guest experience. On top of it, you get a lot of insights out of the data. For example, like if stores are closing before they are supposed to close, or if they are getting out of stock items when they're not supposed to be out of stock, or so you can get a lot of insights. We are able to increase average ticket somewhat. It's important to understand this industry is very, very sensitive. So even if you increase average ticket by 1 to 2%, it's a lot. And then finally, on the labor side, there we're doing a lot. So we can either, or sometimes both, you can save a few hours a day off your schedule with the same results. And during the rest of the hours, when you don't save, you actually get another team member that helps you serve faster. And so it's not just about taking the order faster, but it's about delivering the order faster, and then you can build sales.
Have you ever looked into research in terms of like the voice itself, or whether the voice is male or female, and the receptions of customers to particular kinds of voices?
We're actually working on an article about it. I think that, first of all, we know that there are differences. For example, we know that sometimes a commanding voice is better. Sometimes people say that they want like a male's voice in like late night, And they want the woman's voice during the day, or sometimes there are celebrity voices. But in general, we haven't gotten to this level that you're talking about yet. I think that once we unlock personalization, then it would play an important part. It would be a parameter that you can play with. I would say that today we do see two approaches. One approach is the humanized approach, where you go with a voice that sounds very human. The advantage of that is that it feels, it feels nice. Sometimes, a lot of people they don't know that it's AI, and so it has advantages, and you can also build the voice of the brand. But the other approach is to actually use a digitized voice, more of like the traditional Siri voice, that has some advantages. So advantage number one, it's very transparent to the customers that they are talking to an AI system. And this is, for some brands, it's important. They don't want their customers to be unsure, are they speaking to AI or not? The second advantage is that if you speed up the voice a little bit, customers also speak faster, and also so the whole conversation becomes more structured. Anyway, so these are two different approaches, and they both work.
Do you see it as a success if they can't tell if it's a human or an AI?
I don't know if it's currently important to us. Definitely, it happens a lot. I'll tell you that when we moved in with one of our brands from a digitized voice to a human voice, customers started telling the employee at the window, "Oh, I see you fired the robot." And so people typically know, and I think specifically in the US, people are very sensitive to whether it's like they know that it's within the what they can expect in their public space.
Okay, so we talked about the past, we talked about the present. Let's just have a quick glimpse into the future of Hi Auto. Do you have a strategy for the future in terms of maybe like international expansion, different languages, or perhaps different markets? I mean, you're on fast food at the moment, but are you thinking of expanding into different sectors?
We are a very modest company. We just we're focused on drive-thrus, and for us, that's a lot. And we're trying to do that really well and be the leader of this space. We already have over 700 live paying stores, and so that's our focus, and we're trying to just get better and provide more value to our customers. In terms of the future, we see different things that we can do in order to improve the guest experience, in order to improve the restaurant experience, and generate more value for our customers, which is also going to be good for Hi Auto.
And you mentioned at the very start of this podcast that this is your second venture. Most people, one is enough. What made you decide to go for two? And would you go for a third?
It's a good question. I just heard this podcast that and was talking about death, and they told this story about this old monk that was planting an apple tree. And like, this guy is 90 years old, so other monks see him, planting this apple tree, and they ask him, they tell him, "Why are you planting this apple tree? It's going to take 10 years until it gives apples, and you're not going to enjoy the fruit of your work." He says, "Even if I knew that tomorrow I'm going to die, I would still plant this apple tree today." So I think this is a little bit how I feel about this journey at Hi Auto. I just enjoy it very much. And we have a great team, amazing people. We have amazing customers. We have corporates, the brands, and we have a lot of small businesses, family businesses that own two stores, 5 stores. Even if it's a chain, you may have like 2 stores or 5 stores, or so. I must say I'm just enjoying it a lot.
Just riding the wave, so to speak. Last question, Roy. Could you just tell us a little bit of advice that you give to entrepreneurs, people who may be at the starting point of their business? What advice have you learned from yourself and will be very beneficial for others to have at the early stage?
The most important piece is to start with the right partner or partners. That's the most important piece. And the first piece, it's not the only, but that's the first piece. You have to get it right. You don't get it right, you're going to fail at some point. And you need to find the right idea. You're going to pivot. You're going to go through very difficult times. So it needs to be someone that complements you in terms of their personality, in terms of their capabilities, but that you share similar values, and you are going to be there for each other. It's a very difficult, even though I enjoy it, it's a very difficult path. So I think that's the first advice. The second advice, you have to get your strategy right and understand what's happening, how the world is changing, because the world is changing so fast. And you need to make sure that your assumptions are correct and your bets are correct, your big bets. If your big bets are correct, you're going to make a lot of mistakes, but they're going to protect you. And it's like, it's like these games where a strategic decision made right at the right time is worth, 10,000 points. And a mistake that can seem big, but is a tactical mistake, worth 10 points in the grand scheme of things. So I think that this is something that I would say you have to invest in your strategy, and you potentially need the right mentors if you are first-time entrepreneur in order to get this strategy right. And then the third advice that I always give entrepreneurs, it's super important to have a lot of luck.
Not very much you can do about that, though, is there?
Yeah, I know if you're not lucky, maybe you should, continue to work at corporate.
Well, that's a really good piece of advice. Thank you so much. I just want to thank you so much again for taking the time to speak with us today. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you very much. I really enjoyed our conversation. Bye-bye.
Thank you. That was Roy Baharav, CEO and co-founder at Hi Auto.